the message is this, right? More please, when enough is never enough. You know, it's January and Christmas is over and New Year's is over and what do we need, God? What do you want? And this is where I landed. And so I hope that this is God's will. I can never promise that, never. But I hope it is, and I've certainly spent time praying in it and a lot of time preparing it. And so here it is, and hopefully this is beneficial to you, but it is definitely in line with what we've been on. This idea of slowing down, right? Of intentionally trying to be still. You know, I told you I've put out a lot of stuff over the last couple of weeks, just time of the season and trying to encourage people and help people through that. And one of the comments I got on one of my videos, because you get all kinds of comments out on the internet, you know. And one of the comments I got on one of the videos was, and the idea was to be still, right? Wait on God, wait on the Lord, slow down in life, right? And the guy was like, who has the time or money to slow down? And I read that and I'm like, fair. That's super fair, right? Now, it's a faulty line of thinking, but it's fair. And the truth is, a lot of us feel that way. It's easy for the preacher to get up and say, slow down in your life, right? Slow down. The fact of the matter is, all of the world is against you in this. Your job, your career, good thing. It's a good thing, but it is against you in this, right? It doesn't want you to slow down. If you have a boss, he does not want you or she does not want you to slow down, I promise you. She wants more output from you. He wants more output from you. If you're the boss, all those people you serve, they want more output from you too, right? Even the people that work under you. So the whole world is against it. But as Christians, you cannot deny that this is not what God has for you. Throughout the scripture, He tells you, slow down, wait, right? Stop chasing more. And that's really this very specific focus and vein I want to take for us this morning. This idea of chasing more in our life. The truth is, guys, we don't stop. Let me see if I can get this switch here. Yeah. We don't stop to receive many times. Instead, we rush to replace. And what a fitting message this time of year because, man, it's all done, right? The Christmas is over. The New Year's is over. The festivities are done. The gifts have been passed out and opened. The trash has been burnt, right? All that. How many of you ladies wrapping presents is like artwork for you? This is for my mom. Man, I learned how to wrap presents from my mother, and so I don't wrap presents in my home. My wife does it because my wife's like, done, you know? Throw it out, pass it on, next one. For me, it's, man, you got to fold it a certain way, right? And it's got to be presented just right. And I can't help it. It's how I learned, you know? I feel like I'm disrespecting my mother if I don't do it that way, you know? And so, what was I getting at with that? Oh, yeah, all that, though, no matter how much time and care goes into wrapping that present, it's all gone. It's all burned up, that wrapping paper that we spent so much time. How many of you save the wrapping paper and reuse it? Any weirdos? No. I know people that save the gift bags. That's smart, right? Those things are expensive. But anyway, look, it's all done. Here we are sitting January 4th. And the truth is, man, I may not be preaching this message for anyone else in the room more than myself. I'm being real with you. The tendency in my heart and my spirit is to replace. I'm ready for the next thing. Where's my new joy coming from? Where's my new peace coming from now, right? Where's the new coming from? What's the next thing? Now, what has been my big inspiration for this? And that's my Ezzy. My little Ezra, 3 years old, right? So Christmas time, we're all sitting around, right? We're opening presents. Here's the issue, though. So my wife had, I got to be very careful about what I say here. My wife had one of Ezra's gifts that she had purchased. You know, Santa brings all of his stuff, but mom and dad, they get some stuff too, and so she had purchased something for Ezra. It was kind of a big item, you know, and she had left that overnight in the back of her car. And Ezra probably in his whole life has never gone out on his own and opened up the back of the car. But that morning, guess what Ezra does? He gets in the car. Now, he didn't open the back because he can't do that, but he gets in the car, and he looks over the back, and guess what he sees? This gift, right? And I'm sitting up in my office. I think you were in our bedroom. I'm sitting up in my office, and I hear like the loudest racket of your life, which I'm used to, coming up the stairs, right? And I'm like, what is that, right? And it's so loud. And all of a sudden, my door goes wide open, and here comes Ezra, it was a fire truck, and he's driving this big fire truck through my office, and he slams it down, and he says, "Fire truck, Daddy." I'm like, oh no. So I take it from him and take him out the door, but here's the thing. Ezra knew come Christmas morning, he knew, even though I told him that that's not for you, right? That was for somebody else. He's not stupid at 3 years old. And Ezra loves fire trucks, loves police cars, ambulances. All the time he's making the sounds, right? It's not as fun as you think, okay? 15 minutes in, and Ezra has some lungs on him. I'm telling you what, high-pitched noise comes out of that boy. And he sings all the time too. It's one of my favorite things. He's awesome. But anyway, so like Christmas morning, we're opening presents. Well, we're going to save the big red fire truck for towards the end, right? Mom and Dad is how we stage this, A lot of what Santa brings and Mom and Dad brings, we save that for the end. And so this fire truck, man, the whole time we give him clothes. Okay, next thing, what's next? But even a lot of his other gifts, they were good gifts. Like they were well thought out. They were things he liked, Paw Patrol stuff, and he would get them. But the problem was he knew his best gift was still coming. And so he was just like, he would open it. It was a moment of excitement, and he would toss it and the next thing, right? Now, in our home, this opening presents takes like an hour and a half. It takes a long time because we go through one at a time. Like if you're a kid, our home is the worst. One at a time, you got to wait. Everyone opens their present, right? Because Mom and Dad, we put a lot of time. How many of you can relate? A lot of time and effort and resources go into this moment. And I don't want a storm of 5 minutes later and it's done. So we stretch it out, Daddy makes a pot of coffee and then he goes back, makes another one, break for cinnamon rolls, No, they won't let us do that. That's where they draw the line. But it's one at a time and it's a process. But man, Ezra, he get that present, he throw it off to the side, and then he had to wait. Oh man, he's just like, and he we have video. I'll show it on the screen if you don't believe me. He was having wine baby fits in the middle of Christmas morning, right? Because he wanted the next present. I hope none of you homes are like this, right? But for us, it's that you take the good with the bad. And so he finally got to it, and it wasn't life-changing. Even then, didn't he want something else after that? Yeah, even after he got it and all the presents were done. Of course, Liam's sitting in here, he's no different. We all want more. We all want the next thing, right? Doesn't matter how old we get. Even as adults, it doesn't matter how old we get, right? It's always about more. What's next in my life, right? Now, you know that Jesus actually speaks to this struggle in our life. And it is a struggle. It's real. I don't want anyone in here sitting thinking, well, that's me. I struggle with always wanting the next thing in my life. Guess what? Everyone around you does too. The man standing up here right now does too. I struggle with wanting the next thing. I struggle with being grateful for the thing that I'm currently possessing or going through or experiencing, right? This is a human problem that we have. Jesus understands that, and he speaks to it in Luke 12. You can turn there if you got your Bibles. I'm not going to throw the whole passage up. Here in a second, I'll throw up one of the verses for you to see, but I'm going to give it a few minutes. But we are going to read Luke chapter 12. Man, I got to get over there. I'm in Isaiah, which is not what I want. So Luke chapter 12 and verses 13 through 21 is what we're going to read. This is our text for this morning. I'm almost there. One more page. Oh, man. All right. Luke 12, verse 13 says this, "Then someone called from the crowd, 'Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me.'" Now, this may seem like that's such out of the blue thing. Where's he starting here? Give me a second. I'll tell you. Jesus replied in verse 14, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" Then he said, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." Then he told them a story. Now, if you've been in church for very long, this story that Jesus is about to tell is probably familiar to you. He said a rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. And he said to himself, "What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops." Then he said, "I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, 'My friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry.'" Hey, let me just pause. Take a time out there. Before we villainize this dude, how many of you would love to be in that situation? Yeah, wouldn't you? Man, I have so much in my checking account, I literally don't need to work for the next decade of my life. Or I have so much in my checking account, I can retire right now and I don't have to work if I don't want to the rest of my life. How many of you, if you're being honest, would be like, I'll take that. I'll take that for sure. 100%. So we got to be very careful here. This guy has preached time and time again in the wrong way. I'm going to explain that in a second. He's not a bad guy. That makes me think of Wreck-It Ralph. You're not a bad guy just because you're a bad guy. But anyway, he's not a bad guy because he had a good crop, right? And he built bigger barns. He saved up so he wouldn't have to work in the future. That's not what makes him bad. That's not. And Jesus says that very clearly, despite what many preachers have done to this text. That's not what Jesus is saying. Let's read it, okay? "But God said to him, 'You fool.'" This is why we get hung up on this. He's a fool, right? But why is he a fool? We'll talk about it. "You will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for? Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, period." Is that what it says? That's not what it says. But not have a rich relationship with God. That's the part that's left out all the time. That's the part that, to this day, I have never heard anyone preach in my life. I've never heard a podcast on it. I've never heard a TikTok video on it. I've never heard anyone say that. He's a fool because he stores up wealth and then he dies and loses all of it. That's what I've heard. How many have heard that? That's not what the Bible says. That's not what Jesus said. The Bible said that he was a fool because he did all of that without having a rich relationship with God. Now, back to verse 13. Anyone feel like the timing of that's a little strange? Then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." See, I had kind of zeroed in on the teaching, the parable of the rich guy right at the end. And when I was looking at the text and kind of connecting my thoughts with the text, I was like, man, it's such a weird, because Jesus before that, he's talking about, you guys know the text, the verse that says, God knows the number of hairs on your head. That's how much he cares about you, right? He cares for a whole flock of sparrows. How much more valuable are you than that? That's in the verses right before this, right? And he's talking about not being a hypocrite. He's talking about not worrying so much about the appearance of yourself. He's talking about not fearing people, right? He's saying, trust God in the first 12 verses that we didn't read. That's what he's talking about. And it almost seems like he's having a conversation, he's having a teaching moment, and someone from the crowd interrupts him, right? Someone from the crowd raises their hand and says, hey, that's all fine, well, and good, Jesus. I want to talk about my money for a second. Words that have never been spoken in a church service ever, right? But I want to talk about I know you're talking about eternity. I know you're talking about all that. I want to talk about money for a second. But that's exactly what happened. This guy interrupted Jesus because he had a money dispute. And when I first read it, I'm like, well, okay. So Jesus just does a 360 here, right? He does an about face. And he's like, I'm going to address your situation. But that's not it at all. Jesus actually deals with the concern and is connecting point A to point B in the text. Those first 12 verses about not fearing people, not living for appearances, don't worry about protecting yourself, trust God, He knows what you need, right? These are all where we get our sense of safety from. These things, that's what He's speaking to. Then this guy interrupts him, right? And I meant to throw that up for you. And this is what Jesus says. Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. This is what He says. This is Jesus' response to the man. Now, understand that the man said, hey, I need you to solve a dispute between me and my brother. Our father died. Apparently, this brother is probably the oldest brother, the custom of the day, right? And he's going to get the vast majority of the inheritance. But this guy wants an even split. He wants it to be fair. And here's the great teacher, Jesus. Surely Jesus can solve this dispute. What's Jesus say? Beware. He actually says, who put me in charge to judge your affairs? There's human judges for that. But then He goes on and says, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. So here we have Jesus. He spends 12 verses saying, trust God, don't fear, don't protect yourself. And the very next thing someone asks is, can you help me secure my future? You catching that? Jesus, can you help me? This is his Father's inheritance. This is going to set him up for life. Can you help me secure my future, Jesus? Look, Jesus, this is what He says. All that Christmas stuff, the nativity story, the lights, the festivities, the peace and joy of the season, the new year, the new beginning stuff, that's all fine, well, and good. That's cool, Jesus. That's awesome. But it's January 4th now, and I need you to help me secure my future this year. That's what He says. That's our modern day context for where you're at right now. That's what Jesus is dealing with. The truth is, guys, we look at this guy and we think, come on, this is Jesus talking about eternity. Don't interrupt Him with such a trivial matter. I think we do the same thing to Him every single day. You know why? You know why the Ezzy story sticks with me? Because as I was going through that, watching him, he's 3, right? We're going to work through that, okay? As he's a good kid, but he's 3 years old, right? You know how old his daddy is? His daddy actually cannot remember for sure right now. 37? You don't remember how old I am? Oh my goodness. I was born in 88. Someone, Max, do the math for me. I think I'm 37. But anyway, you know what though? At 37, I kind of do the same thing. God, what's next? Man, that was awesome. But that's over with. That's done. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Actually, God, what's the biggest thing? God, I'm kind of tired of making what I make right now. Can I just fast forward to where I'm going to be in 5 years? That might be a good thing or a bad thing, right? God, I'm kind of tired of my position right now, my job. Can I just go up to VP or president or wherever? Can I just become partner? Can I just, you with me? God, I'm kind of tired. God, I'm kind of overwhelmed with where my family's at right now. Can we just fast forward? Can we just fast forward? The truth is, in this story, we are all this man. We are all the man that interrupts Jesus in the middle of eternal teachings and says, God, that's all fine, well, and good. Like, heaven sounds great to me. All that holiness stuff, that grace stuff, that forgiveness stuff, that sounds great. But Jesus, can we talk about my money for a second? But you know what's awesome is Jesus, this is how He responds. He meets this man not with the problem. Jesus doesn't solve the problem for him. Notice that? It's not that He doesn't care, but the problem is if Jesus goes and becomes the judge right there, then He validates in that man's heart that, yes, in fact, you're right, sir, security does come from your possessions, right? Which is false, and Jesus knows it. He knows he'll never be happy. He knows he'll never be secure in his possessions, so He deals with the heart of the matter. which is awesome. That's what Jesus does. He's so wise. He always gets under the surface and deals with the heart of the matter, right? He diagnoses the problem underneath the request. And I am so thankful that God does that for me, because oftentimes I ask for things that I think I want, and God knows, man, if you knew what you would become if I gave that to you. If you knew what would happen to you and your family if I did what you just asked me for. If you truly, Jerome, understood the heart underneath of your request. And so that's what he does. He helps with that. He meets me at my greatest and truest need. And the same is true for you. So what does he say? Life is not measured by how much you own. Life is not measured that way. Many things are. Many things are measured by what you own, right? But life, Jesus says, is not measured that way. And then he gives this story, right, of the man. And it's also the answer to why the man is a fool. It's not because he stored up wealth, as we said, right, as some have tried to say, but rather this. He did so without a rich relationship towards God. Verse 21 says that. So what does that mean? What does that mean? A rich relationship towards God. All of you know the answer to this. What are relationships built on? What's the foundation of every good, lasting relationship? It's a word. Trust. Trust. Are they built on love? Not really. Is love important? Absolutely. But it doesn't matter how much you love someone if trust is violated. Am I right? Relationships are built on trust. This man was wealthy in this world, but he had never learned to trust God, and therefore he had no real relationship with God. You see, you can accomplish a great deal in this life without walking with God. Did you know that? Absolutely, it's possible. You can build an empire. You can store up and secure your future without knowing Him deeply. But there's one problem in all that. And you might say, but Jerome, listen, the abundance of my things brings me peace. The abundance of my things, they bring me security. Money is reliable. When others leave me, when people fail me, when relationships crumble, when friends stop calling, I still have my money. And you know what I say to that? Fair enough. Fair enough. I think there's a lot of subtle nuance there. It's worth discussion, but you're not totally wrong. At the end of the day, when people leave you, you might very well still have your money. And is it true that the more money you have, the more comfort you can afford in this life? Absolutely. That's true. You're fool to deny it otherwise. Is it true that the more money you have in this life, the more experiences you can have? Doesn't it afford you more opportunity than it does that have less? Absolutely it does. I believe Jesus Christ himself would say, yeah, in this world, you're absolutely right. But there's one problem with that. What happens when life runs out? What then? What happens when life leaves you? And that's the big problem. What do we have then? And now we know why Jesus says life is not measured in what you own. Instead, it's measured in how well you know the Heavenly Father. You cannot know Him deeply, though, if you have not learned to what? What are relationships built on? Trust Him. Trust Him. But the truth is, for many Christians, guys, it goes like this. I'll trust God more as soon as He gives me enough money that I can afford to trust Him. I'll trust God more when I no longer need to trust Him. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. That's like saying, oh, I'll jump out of the plane when you can prove to me the parachute works, right? Maybe you shouldn't have gotten the plane in the first place if that was the goal. That's like saying you're going to go to your new employer and say, they've hired you on. You're going to say, hey, look, I've never worked here before. I've never worked for you. I don't really want to give my time and life into this company without knowing that you're going to pay me. So why don't you go ahead and pay me for the first year? Don't work that way, does it? That's not trust. See, that's not even the way we live our life. But we look at our God and say, I'll trust you when you give me enough that I can afford to do so. It's backwards. The Bible has a word for this mentality, for this heart, and it's not a word that maybe you would have guessed. It's called greed. You say, no, greed is when you have this excessive desire for more in your life. Abundance of wealth, right? That's greed. No, greed actually can manifest itself in very subtle ways in your life and mine. And in fact, many times it causes a feeling in you, anxiety. Now, how many of you had that feeling? How many of you had that feeling this morning when you woke up? I literally did. I couldn't tell you why. Other than I'm human. Last night when I laid my head down, you know what? I was anxious. And I prayed to God. I said, God, why am I so anxious? Why am I so anxious? Many times it looks like anxiety. Sometimes it looks like impatience. Sometimes it looks like restlessness in our life. Ultimately, greed is what happens when trust in God collapses into control of circumstances around us. It is what happens when trust in God collapses into control of the circumstances around us. See if we can get this thing to, there we go. Now, what happens to us inside when greed shows up? When greed shows up, what's the primary side effect? And this is it. Gratitude will fade when replacement becomes the goal in our life. When greed has crept up in your heart, you will not be thankful very often or for very long in your life. Greed doesn't shout. It slowly rearranges what we pay attention to. We don't receive blessings anymore. We consume them. Stop and think. You just went through Christmas. You just went through New Year's. Everything that you did you just consume that stuff? Like the next meal, like you just sat down and you ate it and you moved on, and now what's the next thing? We don't sit in seasons. We rush through them. And slowly but surely and very quietly, gratitude will give way to entitlement in our life. We're not thankful to God anymore. Instead, we're like, God, you kind of owe me this. Oh, God, you're supposed to take care of me. God, you're supposed to give me this. God, you're supposed to make sure I'm happy. God, you're supposed to make sure I'm at peace. I'm not. That's your fault, not mine. It's entitlement. Just notice that. Do you ever have that feeling in your mind, in your spirit? Do you ever have that, even in your prayer time, where you're like, God, you told me, you said, that's entitlement. That's not gratitude. That's entitlement. And then trust gives way to control. And the more we chase, the more in our life, the more tired and tied up we become in all of that. Our culture tells us more will fix it. More money, more clarity, more comfort, more success. How many times have you got to that point? You chased more, and on the other side of it, you felt just as restless, if not more so. Man, every time I got what I thought I wanted, it was not enough. It was not enough. I needed more. God shows up day by day in our life. Shows up day by day. What does that mean? What does that mean? That's daily provisions, what we call that. That's what God wants in your life. That's what God wants. He wants to show up day by day, provide for you day by day. Did you know there's not a single husband in here that can look at his wife and say, I'll be here for you next year? He can't promise that. I know you want to, but you can't. You can't even promise her tomorrow. Because you might be like the man, right? You might die. But you know what you can do? You can be with her now. Ma'am, you can be with him now. You can give him or her the present. And did you know that that is actually exactly what God desires with you and me too? He just wants now. See, you and I, we're worried about next year. We're worried about the middle of 2026, and we're worried about the end of it. But God, He just wants you today. The problem is we are not trusting Him for tomorrow. We're not looking and saying, oh God, I know you're already there. I know you're in 6 months from now. I know you're in a year from now, right? I know that. So I'm just going to live with you today. I think it's so helpful. I think it's so helpful if you stop and think about that relationship dynamic, right? A husband and a wife. You don't know that you have tomorrow. You don't know that you have next year, but you have each other today. Enough for today. Here's the thing. A lot of people look at God. I know this to be true. And they see that daily provision, that God's going to give you enough for today. And it's like dangling a carrot in front of them. You remember the old State Farm commercial where the guy he had the dollar on a fishing line, and he kept, my wife and I refer to this all the time, but he almost got it, right? He was trying to get the dollar and he couldn't get it because every time he got close to getting the dollar, the agent would lift the dollar up, right? And he could never get it. And he would say, oh, you're almost there. You've almost got it. Keep trying. And a lot of people look at God like that. Like he's just giving me a little bit of a tease, a little bit of a blessing now to keep me chasing after him. It's the carrot in front of the face, right? But that is not God. You know the Israelites in the wilderness, right? The manna. You ever stop to think about that? Why didn't he just give them everything they needed right then for weeks? What did he do? He didn't do that, did he? He gave them what they needed that day. With the exception of the Sabbath, and he gave them enough for 2 days so they wouldn't have to work on Sunday or Saturday, right? But other than that, it was what you needed that day. Have you ever stopped to think, why did he operate that way? Was it a tease? Was it just like, oh, I'm going to keep flashing that dollar in front of your face so that hopefully you'll keep chasing after me? It's not that at all. It's the promise that, hey, you can see that I'm with you today, and I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. It's all about relationship with God. Every bit of it. He just wants today with you and me. He wants today. And the reason why he hasn't given you $1 billion and me, right? The reason why he hadn't done that primarily is because you don't need it today. I don't need it today. All I need is what he's already given me. And I can rest in that. I can rest in that. God's not saying chase me. He's saying walk with me. We want more than enough, but God gives enough for today. Not because he's limiting us, but because today is where he is with us. When we don't believe that God is near, we start to hurry him. That's the problem. When we rush God, we trade trust for control in our life. Rushing God is not about speed. It's about who's responsible for the outcomes. When we rush, what do we start doing? We start fixing, we start managing, we start planning, securing, protecting. All that feels very responsible. But the problem is the belief that's underneath of it. If I don't take control, this isn't going to work out for me. If I don't take control of the reins, if I don't take this from God, it's not going to work out well for me. Man, I struggle with that doubt in my mind so much. God, if I don't take the wheel, if I don't drive, I may not get to where I'm supposed to be. I may not get what I'm supposed to have. I may not be who I'm supposed to be. And so we take the reins from God and we start rushing him. But it's just anxiety disguised as wisdom. We say that we're being responsible because we make all the plans. And I'm not against making plans. I'm truly not. But it's this idea that God, you're not going to take care of me in a year, so I have to fortify myself for next year today. When God simply says, it is from start to finish, from start to finish. As a Christian, you cannot argue with the theology. God says today, today. Only today. Today. I want to be with you today. You trust me for tomorrow. Trust me for tomorrow. Can you do that? Can you trust me for the middle of 2026? Can you trust me for the end of 2026? But the truth is, guys, we don't do that. We don't. That's not what I do. I say I trust God, but then I turn around and I do all the things to secure myself for next year, for the end of the year. Now, the message is not about, please hear me, okay? The message is not about, and I'm all done. The message is not about don't save. Retirement's bad, right? 401ks. That's not what the message is about. Those things are good. The Bible talks about stewardship. The message is about us relying on those things, living for those things. Every decision we make, every process we take, everything on our to-do list, all of our schedules is all geared towards those ends. Fortifying ourselves, securing ourselves, and so little of it, and test me on this statement, am I telling the truth? So little of our schedule is actually revolved around spending time with my God today. And you will see the truth of what I'm saying. You will see it. That yes, we say the right words and we put on a good show and nobody more than me, nobody better than me. We do all the right things, but the fact of the matter is, that is not how we're living our life. And our Jesus knows it and He's calling us out. All of us. And He's saying, you're backwards. You're backwards. It's all backwards. And I know the world's against you. And I know that you don't think this is going to work. And I know that your mentality is, who has the time for that nonsense? Let's pray. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this time, this challenge. Father, I know that was not a smooth delivery, but I hope that you can take it and use it in our life. With your heads bowed and your eyes closed, stop and think. Maybe this. So many times at this time, we go to God and we ask God for things, don't we? God, make me more this, help me with this, do this for me. Maybe just take time to be grateful in this invitation time, to live in the moment, to just reflect on what God has done already in your life, what He's doing right now, and be thankful. That's how you'll fight that greed, that desire for more, the next thing. Is stop and look at the thing you have right now and say, God, thank you. I'm not going to let this pass me by. I'm not going to just consume this. God, I know the season of joy and peace is over, but not for me, it's not. Not for me, it's not. God, I know the season of slowing down, of taking time off of work and celebrating family and community is over, but not for me. Not for me. Oh, I got to go to work tomorrow. Got to fulfill my responsibilities, but I'm going to live gratefully.